We're in Las Vegas for Big Ten Football Media Days. The Hawkeyes go on Thursday, but a lot of buzz and a depth chart that we're going to work on today. What are the Hawkeyes going to look like today? Locked on Hawkeyes.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. I've been covering the Hawkeyes for over 20 years on the radio here in the state of Iowa. Currently, you can hear me on the Iowa Sports Radio Network each weekday from noon to 2, talking the world of sports. You can hear me on stations in Sioux City, the Quad Cities, Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, and our flagship 106.3 KXNO. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Well, we got word as we were talking with Elliot on Sunday, and we got the official word from Matt Weitzel, the sports information director at the University of Iowa. There will be no depth chart, so we're going to get into that today and what a Hawkeye depth chart would look like if we got it in this normal time of Big Ten Football Media Days. What we expect to hear from Kirk and the players coming up on Thursday. We'll talk a little bit about that. Got some basketball news and notes to get into as well, but I want to start first with some buzz happening here at Big Ten Football Media Day. So yesterday, had an opportunity to walk around a little bit, ask a couple of questions, talk to Greg Shian for a moment, asked him about playing Iowa. Have that clip coming up for you here momentarily. Also, had an opportunity to listen to Matt Rhule and the Nebraska head coach and what he thinks about his squad. A lot of anticipation. One thing about Rhule, last year we had the non-shaking of hands, and that turned into a thing, and it was petty, and it was Nebraska-like, but that's not a surprise. But I can understand, as though I'm not a big Matt Rhule fan, why, there's anticipation. Year 3 is normally when they take a big step forward in his programs that he has run in the past, but also I understand how he sells, how he's a good recruiter, and how people buy in to what he's selling. Just sitting there listening for 20 minutes on the side, and getting some perspective from him. I get it. I understand it. Doesn't mean that I have to like the guy or anything like that, but it's just the reality. So always good to kind of get that information, some of the different things that are talked about. The big storyline that happened on Tuesday was Tony Petitti. And Petitti gets up on the stand, opens up the remarks at Big Ten Football Media Days, and that's what always happens. The commissioner goes first. And, of course, there was a lot of conversation about the college football playoff. And we've talked about this before. Every dayers know where my perspective is with the college football playoff, and it's a selfish one. But I love the idea that the Big Ten has about the automatic bids. And I love it because we're fans of the Iowa Hawkeyes. And for us, in this new 18-team league, how realistic is it that Iowa, on any given season, is going to be able to go through the gauntlet of a schedule that they're going to face realistically year in, year out? This year, you don't play Michigan or Ohio State, and yet it's an absolute tough, difficult schedule that the Hawkeyes have this year. That I was going to be good enough to get into a Big Ten championship game. And we go from the old Big Ten West and the obviously opportunities that were there in that division to where it is today. It is a different world. And for the Hawkeyes, this kind of model makes sense. A year ago, in a very disappointing year, Iowa would have been playing in one of those play-in games that the Big Ten wants to stage to get to the college football playoff, which is incredible, right? I mean, that kind of opportunity. Now, they're going to have to upset Ohio State to do it, but still, to have that kind of opportunity, that is a realistic goal for a program like Iowa. It's not going to be able to outspend programs. It's not the same stratosphere year in, year out of the Ohio States and the Michigans and the Penn States and the Oregons of the world, both financially and just what they do in terms of recruiting. Iowa plays at a different level. But when you have something, and it's not just for Iowa, it's also for Minnesota and Illinois and Nebraska and on and on and on, other programs that have that goal, a realistic goal that they're going to be able to attain in years. Yes, getting the 6th seed, maybe being 8-4 like Iowa was a year ago, doesn't scream playoff team. But in the NFL, we have playoff teams that come out of terrible divisions, and they get to host a game. And that wouldn't be the case in this one. So if you missed the model, what the Big Ten wants is 4 automatic bids to go to both the SEC and the Big Ten. 2 for the ACC, 2 for the Big 12, and then the remaining at larges group of 5 gets 1. Notre Dame would get 1, and then at larges to round out the field of 16. That's what the Big 10 wants. And the reason they want that is for those games I mentioned. You still stage a conference championship game, number 1 versus number 2, and then your number 3 team goes up against the number 6. This all will happen on championship weekend. So it's more inventory. We're talking about financially selling that to your television partners. That's big. You get 2 extra games. 4 seed against the 5, 3 against the 6. The winner of those games then advance with an automatic bid. You're automatically in to the college football playoff. And that gives that ability for those other teams to get in there. Now, I don't think Tony Petitti was always completely selling what his vision was. He's pretty dry. He, in terms of personality, didn't have a whole lot there. But hey, that is just who he is. And that's kind of what we're dealing with and what we're talking about here. So we will hear more on Wednesday today, as we will hear from PJ Fleck, few other of the regional teams. Yesterday was Bielema and Rule, kind of our teams in our area, and it'll be that. Then on Thursday is where we'll hear from Kirk Ferentz and the 3 players that'll be coming along. Cohen Entringer making an appearance, Ethan Herkett, and also we will hear from Logan Jones. So that'll be coming up on Thursday. Have a ton of content coming from that. Hope to have some interviews, not just with Kirk, but the players, and we'll have a lot of audio that'll be coming your way. Speaking of audio, as I mentioned, I had an opportunity to talk with Greg Shian just for a moment, just a quick question, and his thoughts as he talks about playing Iowa and playing against Kirk Ferentz.
Against Iowa, you'll have a short week because it's on a Friday night as well. Kirk, get ready to turn 70 here next month. What's it like going up against a Kirk Ferentz team and you guys having that for blackout game, Friday night game for you guys and getting them for your opener in the Big Ten?
Yeah, I have the utmost respect for Kirk. I think he's not only an excellent coach, but an excellent person. He's enjoyed competing with he and his program. A lot of respect for not only he, but all his assistants, the job they do. It'll be our first game. I haven't really given a lot of thought because right now I'm focused on Ohio U and our football team. But, they're always very tough and well coached, disciplined, all the things that I respect and all the things that I want our program to be.
There you go, Greg Schiano, just talking a little bit about Kirk Ferentz and that matchup. It's an interesting one. It'll be a short week for Iowa. We've talked about this in the past a little bit. Could that be a potential tough spot for Iowa? Look ahead spot, those kind of things. The Hawkeyes will have the Hoosiers after that. We'll see where Indiana is, another one of the teams that have anticipation. Kirk Cignetti, he got under the skin of the SEC a little bit, talking about his non-conference schedule, which is an absolute joke, and saying it's an SEC-like schedule. And, of course, rankling the people there, which is always good to do, right? Freaking out the people of the SEC. All right, let's talk some Iowa football. And now let's get into a projected depth chart that I have, since we're not going to get a depth chart here this week at Big Ten Football Media Days. A deep dive into the Hawkeye roster and what the 2 deep will be, according to me. We'll do that next. Locked On Hawkeyes. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, even invite a bigger group to come with you. Gametime makes it possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. They got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. I love to find exactly where I want to be inside the stadium. How about this? Gametime zone deals. Pick the best seats in the section that you want. Maybe you have a section you always love to be in. This on the Gametime app allows you to find tickets in that section, and boom, away you go. See views right in the app before you buy. Know exactly what it's going to look like while you're watching the game. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Trent kind of back with you once again here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for being with us and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. All right, let's talk a little Iowa football and the depth chart. As mentioned, we will not get a depth chart this week. Always disappointing. So this is kind of piecing together a few things that we've heard throughout the course of the summer. Some guys may be taking a step forward. So let's start very simply on the offensive side of the football. And we start at the quarterback spot. Now, I think this one is an easy one. Mark Gronowski is going to be your starter. The backup is going to be Hank Brown. I believe Hank Brown is going to be the guy that eventually wins that job. I know there's Jackson Stratton Love from what we saw from him a year ago, thrust into the spotlight. I just don't see it. I don't think that he is the answer, even though he is more veteran than these other guys that we're talking about. And then Jeremy Hecklinski. That'll be interesting to see, too, kind of where he fits into this role. Hecklinski, the Wake Forest transfer, a guy that's gotten a whole lot of buzz there. We jump over to next running back. And running back, another, I believe, pretty easy one. Kamari Moulton listed as a starter, Jazion Patterson as the backup. I think that's what we're going to see. But more and more buzz continue to build for Terrell Washington Jr. as he is a guy that's been talked about, his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. Remember, he was moved to receiver. Now he's back over at the running back spot. Really dynamic with the ball in his hands. But I think we will see Moulton and Patterson listed 1-2 on the depth chart when it is released coming up in August. Let's go to the tight end position. Another easy one when we're just talking about 1-2. Addison Estrenga is going to be your starter. Zach Ortworth will be the backup. I think we got that one nailed down pretty well. And then we go to wide receiver. And this is where it gets dicey because, yes, there's actually depth at wide receiver for the first time. So they've been listing 3 receivers in the starting spot. We know Jacob Gill is going to be one of the starters. We know a healthy Reese Vanderzee is going to be one of the starters. So who will be the third starter listed? We go back to spring football and the way that they had it set up. Vanderzee was listed at one of the spots, Jacob Gill at the other, and Seth Anderson was listed as a starter. And I believe that is going to be the case also going forward. When we get that first depth chart, that's what we're going to see. Where does Sam Phillips, though, work into the mix? Is he going to be listed there? KJ Parker, a guy that, speaking of a buzz summer guy, definitely going to be there. They want to get Caden Weechin involved more this season in the passing game and what he can do just with the ball in his hands, jet sweeps and the like, doing that. And then the young guys that we saw glimpses of a year ago, Dayton Howard and Jarrett Bowie. You got both of those players. So a lot of depth at that wide receiver spot. I think your starters are going to be Gill, Vanderzee, and Anderson. And then from there, the backups, I got Phillips, Parker, and Weechin, at least in the listed ones there. We finish things up on the offensive line. And instead of going left to right, let's go right to left, because left tackle is certainly, I think, the most intriguing that we're going to see, and the most questions, obviously, with this football team. And, you go back to a year ago and the huge strides that we saw from the offensive line, going to a new system, changing what they do in the running game, going with more outside zone, scrapping a lot of some of the zone concepts that they had, but then you're using a lot more gap kind of blocking in the middle. And with Caleb Johnson in the backfield, that obviously exploded for the Hawkeyes a year ago. You return 3 guys, 3 veterans from that group, guys that have played a lot of football, and then you figure it out from there. So Jennings Dunker is going to be the right tackle coming off the surgery that he had back in the spring. Back up at that right tackle position behind him, going back to the spring, it was Cannon Leonard that was listed, the sophomore, as the backup at that spot. Right guard, Cade Pieper is going to be the guy. Now he is bigger. He's added weight, added mass. I'd like to see that. Pieper's going to be the guy. I believe Michael Malinsky, another guy that has been around for a long time, was a big recruit coming out of Jacksonville, Florida, and has never been able to be healthy. It would be great to see him have a healthy senior season to be able to help out at minimum in the middle of this offensive line. Center position, another easy one. Logan Jones is going to be listed as the starter. We definitely know that. Behind him, Cale Winter, a former walk-on. He's a guy that continues to impress, a redshirt sophomore coming up this season. The left guard position, that is Bo Stevens. He is going to be the guy there. We definitely know that. Who's the backup? Speaking of young guys, Leighton Jones might be something to keep an eye on. If he can start to become part of the rotation, another redshirt sophomore. But then we wrap up at the biggest intrigue. Who is going to be the left tackle? You have the 2 guys that went through spring practice fighting for the job. Jack Dotzler, a redshirt junior. Trevor Lauk, a redshirt sophomore. And then they go into the portal and they get Bryce George from Ferris State. Guy that was widely coveted. USC was after him. Hawkeyes got him. He's a guy that hasn't played a ton of left tackle, more of a right tackle in his career. The question's been asked about Jennings Dunker And we'll ask it, I'm sure, again, coming up on Thursday with Kirk about his ability. Could he flip over to the left side? It's something that Jennings Dunker just has not been comfortable with. He's more comfortable in that right tackle position. On the left side, Lauk, Dotzler, both those guys have been going through it. Can Bryce George close that gap? I'm going to say not right away. And I'm going to go with the upside of Trevor Lauk. You look at the profile, he's a guy that has been talked about for the last couple of years. He's doing all the right things. He's getting in the right reps. He's a guy that they were excited about and are excited about what he is going to be. So I'm going to go that Lauk is going to be the winner on the left tackle spot. So that is the offense. Let's get into the defense next to take a look at the Hawkeye depth chart. We'll do that as we continue Locked On Hawkeyes. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning for a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. I like to take vacations with the family, right? They always say take the trip. And for me, taking the trip with the kids and the wife, absolutely. But you got to save and putting it together on the Monarch app, finding something that you can target, a goal that you're looking for. You want to be serious about taking that big trip next spring, next summer, absolutely can do that right there on the Monarch Money app. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. monarchmoney.com. Trent Condon back with you one final time on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for being with us and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Let's jump over to the defense and take a peek at what we anticipate this is going to look like when we get a depth chart. That will be coming out here in a few weeks. We'll not get that until August is the word that we got here in Las Vegas. We start up front, and we know that it's going to be Max Llewellyn on one side, Ethan Herkett on the other. Speaking of intriguing and young guys, Joseph Anderson showed up on the depth chart at the end of the spring. Now, I think there is also a reason for that. Brian Allen was not listed as he was going through surgery. So when Brian Allen is going to be he's going to be part of that rotation on that defensive line. And then you also have guys like Kenneth Merriweather, you know what he's going to be. But that young defensive line, Shanike, guys like that are going to be able to step forward, I believe, and help out right away. We go to the middle of that defensive line. Obviously, Aaron Graves, another easy one. He's going to be one of the starters at defensive tackle. And then will it be Jeremiah Pittman, or is it going to be one of the two transfers that they brought in? So they go out to Central Michigan. They bring in Jonah Pace. They get Bryce Hawthorne from South Dakota State. And boy, it just continues to sound like Hawthorne is a guy. They got a gem. They're really excited about what he's going to be, taking that step up. Still a younger guy and still 3 years of eligibility remaining for Bryce Hawthorne. A lot of excitement that they feel like they got something done there. Graves, we saw what kind of playmaker he can be. Now it's just being able to do that at a more consistent level inside. And could Jeremiah Pittman have one of those senior year steps, going from being a guy and taking that big step forward? That's what you're hoping to see out of Jeremiah Pittman. I think that's what it's going to look like. I think it'll be at the start of the season, Pittman, followed up by Hawthorne, Pace as the backup roles at the tackle position. We jump to linebackers. Jaden Harrell's going to be the guy at middle linebacker. Jaden Montgomery backing him up on the Will side of things. It'll be Carson Shire, if healthy. We talk about that a ton. Van Kekricks, who we've seen a bunch on special teams. He's going to be there in a backup role and still playing some good special teams. The Leo spot, as we know, Iowa doesn't play a ton of 4-3 anymore in comparison to what it once was with the cash position. But when they do go with three linebackers, Jackson Rexroth, easy for me to say, he's going to be the guy listed as your starter. But keep an eye on Derek Weiskopf. You know, he's a guy that also showed up on that spring depth chart, and him, Preston Reese, who's just dominating in the weight room of what he's able to put together. And they got those three guys that came in together and now as redshirt freshmen. It'll be interesting to see if any of those guys can take a step forward and find them way out to the depth chart. Let's go over to the defensive backfield. And we've talked about the move for Xavier Wampa. As Wampa moves over to free safety, he'll take over the spot from Schulte. Cohen Entringer, what's he going to look like? You got the cash position and the way that they're going to kind of mix and match. What makes the most sense for Iowa football? And if it is Entringer at the cash position, does that mean that we're going to see Lutmer at the strong safety spot? I think that's how it's going to play out. I think it'll be Lutmer at strong safety. Then you'll have Cohen Entringer as that cash position when they're playing cash. That's going to be the look that you're going to see out there. And then finally, a cornerback. And cornerback's probably the one that you look at and say, after TJ Hall, who had a tremendous spring, who's going to win that second spot? Is it Deshaun Lee, who has the most experience of the guys, a little bit undersized, just feels like at times physically he hasn't been able to hold up. He's had some big spots, but plenty that have gone the other way. If it's not them, is it Shahid Barrows? Barrows comes in from South Dakota, a system that is very similar to Iowa's. That is going to be who I choose. I believe that he is going to win that job coming out of camp. They went out into the portal for a reason. They found a guy that they liked, and I think Barrows is going to be your starter opposite TJ Hall. Also, another name to know is Jalen Watson, who played last year as a freshman. Really like his upside and what he's going to be going forward. So there it is, a stab at the depth chart, since unfortunately we will not get a depth chart here in Las Vegas. As mentioned, we got a lot coming up this week. We'll hear from Kirk. We'll hear from the players. We will continue to pump out the content here from Las Vegas. We'll see what we get out of media days coming up today here on Wednesday. And then Kirk and the players will go on Thursday. And we got you covered on Locked On Hawkeyes. Your team every day. That's what we do here on the Locked On Network. That'll do it for today. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Until then, go Hawks.